Commander Jin-Ho Park stared at the holographic display in the center of Earth's Defense Command bunker, 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps. The alien fleet stretched across space like a metal constellation, each ship the size of a city. Block! Red warning lights bathed the command center as hundreds of officers worked frantically at their stations. "Sir, we're counting 237 vessels," reported Lieutenant Yon Song, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. "Long-range scanners show weapon systems we've never seen before." Jin-Ho nodded grimly. The Caltherian Empire had arrived exactly as Earth's intelligence network had predicted. For 20 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment, ever since their first contact with refugees from the Outer Rim worlds. The main screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. General Carvex looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird with golden scales and piercing orange eyes that seemed to burn with ancient authority. When he spoke, the universal translator made his voice sound like grinding metal. Species designation, human. World designation, Earth. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally to imperial rule. Your military forces will be disbanded. Your government will be dissolved. Your people will serve the Empire. Failure to comply will result in planetary sterilization. This is your only warning. The transmission ended, leaving the command center. Fine tense silence. Jin-Ho could hear his own heartbeat as he processed what they'd just witnessed. Around him, younger officers looked terrified. Some were probably thinking about their families, their children, their dreams that might end in 3 days. Admiral So-Min Lee emerged from the strategic planning room, her grey hair pulled back, in a tight bun, her uniform crisp despite having worked for 18 straight hours. She'd fought in 3 colonial wars and survived the asteroid mining conflicts, but Jin-Ho had never seen her look this serious. "Analysis is complete," she announced, her voice carrying across the command center. "Intelligence confirms what we suspected. They've done this to 47 other worlds, Jin-Ho. The pattern never changes. They arrive. They demand surrender. And every single species either gives up immediately or gets turned into space dust within days." She pulled up holographic records of dead worlds, scorched planets where once thriving civilizations had been, reduced to glowing craters. The Rigelian collective had lasted 6 hours. The peaceful Andorian Federation had tried to negotiate and been destroyed during the talks. The warrior clans of Vega Prime had fought bravely for 2 whole days before their world became a lifeless rock. The Caltherians have been doing this for 3 centuries, So-Min continued. They've perfected the art of conquest, show overwhelming force, demand immediate surrender, and if anyone resists, make an example of them that terrifies the next 10 worlds. Jin-Ho walked to the massive viewing window that looked out onto the underground hangar, where Earth's secret fleet waited in darkness. Sleek, black ships that looked nothing like the public space vessels the galaxy knew about. Humanity had learned to hide their true capabilities. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Wu Jin Nam, "they're broadcasting the ultimatum to every major city on Earth. They want our entire population to know what's coming." Jin-Ho could imagine the panic spreading across the planet. News broadcasts would be going crazy. People would be calling their families, praying, preparing for the end. Some governments might even consider surrender to save their people. But Jin-Ho remembered the stories told by the Centauri refugees who'd escaped Caltherian rule. Entire species worked to death in mining operations, children taken from their families to serve as slave labor. Proud civilizations reduced to nothing more than numbers in imperial databases. They think we're just another primitive single world. "Species," Jin-Ho said, his voice growing stronger. "They've studied our public technology, our visible military, our open communications. They think they know everything about us." Admiral So-Min moved to stand beside him. "The question is, Jin-Ho, are we really ready for this? We've prepared for 20 years, but we've never faced anything like their fleet." Jin-Ho thought about the secret colonies humanity had established on asteroids and distant moons, the hidden research stations where they'd been reverse engineering alien technology, the volunteers who'd spent decades infiltrating imperial space, learning their weaknesses, mapping their supply lines. "Admiral," he said, turning to face the command center, "what makes humans different from every other species the Empire has conquered?" A young ensign named Haiwan Kang raised her hand tentatively. "Sir, we're stubborn," Jinho smiled for the first time in days. That's part of it. But more than that, we've never learned how to quit. When faced with extinction, other species calculate odds and surrender logically. Humans get angry. He walked to the communications console. Patch me through to the Caltherian flagship. The screen flickered back to life, showing General Carvex's scaled face. The alien leader looked surprised that the humans were responding so quickly. Have you reached your decision, human commander? Carvex asked with obvious satisfaction. Jinho stood at attention, representing not just Earth's military, but humanity's entire spirit. We have, General. After careful consideration of your generous offer, he paused, knowing that his next words would change everything. We decline. Earth remains free. The alien general's orange eyes widened in disbelief. On the Imperial flagship's bridge, Caltherian officers looked at each other in confusion. In 300 years of conquest, no single world species had ever refused the Empire's mercy. You do not understand, human, Carvex snarled. We will destroy your world. Your species will cease to exist. Jinho's expression didn't change. Then you'll have to catch us first. The transmission ended, leaving the Imperial fleet in stunned silence while Earth's defenders prepared for the fight of their lives. Captain Hyejin Kim gripped the metal railing of Earth Defense Station Alpha as 50 Caltherian warships descended toward Earth like metallic vultures. Each alien vessel was 3 times larger than anything humanity had ever publicly displayed, their hulls gleaming with energy shields that could deflect asteroid impacts. Ma'am, they're moving into attack formation, reported sensor operator Sung-Ho Park, his hands flying across holographic controls. Range 2 million kilometers and closing. Their weapons are charging. Hyejin watched the tactical display with calm eyes, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. Around the defense station, what appeared to be a ragtag collection of human ships floated in space. Old cargo haulers, mining vessels and passenger transports that looked like they belonged in a scrapyard rather than a battle. General Carvex's voice crackled over the communication system from his flagship, the massive dreadnought, Imperial. Fang. Humans, you see our demonstration fleet. 50 warships, each capable of cracking your moon in half. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. The alien general expected panic, begging, maybe desperate attempts at negotiation. Instead, Admiral So-Min Lee's voice came back steady as steel from Earth's command center. All ships, this is Admiral Lee, execute Protocol Defiance. What happened next made Carvex's orange eyes widen in shock. The pathetic human cargo ship, Lucky Dragon, suddenly split apart like a flower blooming, revealing a sleek combat vessel, bristling with weapons that shouldn't exist. The mining hauler, Iron Mountain, shed its outer hull like snakeskin, exposing advanced shield generators and torpedo tubes that gleamed with alien technology. Impossible, whispered Carvex's tactical officer, a scaled creature with 4 arms. Those are Centauri plasma cannons, Rigelian shield matrices. How do they have our technology? Captain Hyejin smiled as her own station revealed its true nature. Hidden panels slid away, exposing defensive turrets that had been reverse-engineered. From captured Caltherian weapons, 20 years of secret preparation was about to pay off. All fighter squadrons launch, she commanded. From what looked like empty space, invisible hangar bays opened and disgorged clouds of human fighters. These weren't the clunky atmospheric craft the galaxy knew about. These were sleek interceptors built from stolen alien blueprints, powered by fusion cores that burned like tiny stars. Lieutenant Dongwu Choi led Phoenix Squadron in the first wave, his fighters' engines leaving trails of blue fire across the darkness. Control, this is Phoenix Leader. 50 targets just like training. Let's show these lizards what humans do when cornered. The Caltherian demonstration fleet opened fire, expecting to vaporize the primitive human defenders in seconds. Instead, their energy beams struck shields that shouldn't exist, scattered off armor plating that had been designed using their own metallurgy, and missed targets that moved with impossible grace. Evasive pattern Delta 7, Dongwu called to his squadron as Caltherian plasma bolts lit up space around them. His fighter twisted through the barrage like a dancer, its human pilot pushing the craft beyond what its alien designers thought possible. The first Caltherian frigate died when Dongwu's squadron hit it with fusion torpedoes, from 6 different angles. The alien ship's shields collapsed, its hull cracked like an egg, and atmosphere vented into space along with screaming Caltherian crew members. "What is happening?" Carvex roared at his officers. "These are primitives, single-world barbarians." His tactical display showed impossible things. Human ships that appeared as cargo haulers were revealing themselves as advanced warships. Weapons that matched Caltherian military technology were tearing through his demonstration fleet. Fighter craft moved with precision that suggested decades of training and preparation. Captain Hai-Jin watched from her command station as the battle unfolded exactly as humanity had planned. The massive human vessel, Sleeping Giant, disguised as a colony transport, dropped its camouflage and revealed itself as a Dreadnought-class battleship. Its main cannon, built from reverse-engineered Andromedan technology, charged with enough power to split an asteroid. "Target the Caltherian command ship," Hai-Jin ordered. "Let's send a message." The Sleeping Giant's cannon fired, sending a beam of concentrated energy across space that struck Carvex's flagship dead center. The Imperial Fang staggered under the impact, its shields flaring and failing, its hull buckling under forces it wasn't designed to handle. "Sir, we're taking massive damage," reported Carvex's engineering officer. "Hull breaches on decks 12 through 18, main weapons offline." Around the battlefield, more Caltherian ships were dying. The human cargo hauler, Deep Space Merchant, revealed missile pods that launched smart torpedoes, each one guided by artificial intelligence that had learned from studying alien combat patterns. The mining ship, Asteroid Dancer, deployed energy nets that tangled Caltherian fighters and crushed them like insects. Lieutenant Dongwu's squadron had grown from 12 fighters to 30 as more human pilots joined the battle. They moved through the Caltherian formation like sharks through a school of fish, their weapons picking off enemy ships with surgical precision. "Phoenix leader to all squadrons," Dongwu called over the comm, his voice filled with fierce joy. They expected sheep. They found wolves. The battle lasted 4 hours and 17 minutes. When it ended, 47 Caltherian warships were nothing but glowing debris scattered across Earth's orbital space. 3 ships escaped, their crews traumatized and their hulls scarred by weapons they thought only they possessed. General Carvex stared at his tactical display from the bridge of his damaged flagship, watching the impossible replay over and over. A demonstration fleet that had conquered worlds was destroyed by what should have been primitive defenders. How? He whispered to himself. How did they know? How were they ready? The answer came from Admiral Lee's voice, broadcast across all frequencies so every surviving Caltherian could hear. "You want to know our secret, General? For 20 years we've been preparing for this day. Every piece of technology you've shared through trade, every refugee who escaped your empire, every weakness in your tactics, we studied it all. You taught us how to fight you." As the surviving Caltherian ships limped away from Earth, carrying news of the impossible defeat back to their empire, humanity prepared for the real war that was coming. The demonstration was over. Now the galaxy would learn that when humans refuse to surrender, they don't just resist, they win. Captain Minseo Han crouched in the ventilation shaft above Calther Prime's main industrial complex, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. Through the metal grating below, she could see Caltherian guards patrolling between massive mining robots that never stopped working. The facility stretched for kilometers, processing rare metals that fueled the Empire's war machine. "Phoenix, last, this is Viper Team," she whispered into her throat mic. "We're in position, 30 seconds to activation, 20 light-years away on Earth." Admiral So-Min Lee stood in the war room surrounded by holographic displays showing 32 different Imperial worlds. Each display showed a small green dot representing human operatives who had spent decades building secret networks throughout Caltherian space. "All teams, this is Command." Admiral Lee's voice reached across the galaxy through quantum communicators that the Empire couldn't detect. "Operation Liberation begins now. Remember, we're not conquerors, we're freedom fighters." On Calther Prime's industrial moon, Minseo dropped through the grating into the facility's main corridor. Her team of 6 commandos followed silently, their faces painted with adaptive camouflage that shifted colors to match their surroundings. They'd trained for this mission for 8 years, studying every pipe, every guard rotation, every weakness in Imperial security. The mining robots were 12 feet tall, with multiple arms designed for digging and lifting heavy ore. What the Caltherians didn't know was that human engineers had been secretly modifying these machines during routine maintenance visits over the past 5 years. "Junho, activate the surprises," Minseo ordered. Specialist Kang Junho pulled out a device that looked like a simple repair scanner. When he pointed it at the nearest mining robot, hidden programming activated. The machine's optical sensors flashed red, and it suddenly turned toward the Caltherian guards. "Warning, safety protocols disengaged," the robot announced in its mechanical voice. Switching to combat mode, the Caltherian guards barely had time to raise their energy weapons before the mining robot's massive drill arms spun to life. What had been a peaceful industrial tool became a terrifying war machine, its programming rewritten by human hackers who had infiltrated Imperial systems years earlier. Across the facility, more mining robots activated their hidden combat protocols. Chaos erupted as the machines that had served the Empire faithfully for decades suddenly turned against their masters. Caltherian soldiers found themselves fighting their own equipment while human commandos struck from the shadows. Meanwhile, on 17 other Imperial worlds, similar scenes played out simultaneously. On Vega Station, human operative Song Mi-young led a team of liberated prisoners in seizing the main communications hub. On Rigel 7, former Earth Marine Captain Park Tae-ho guided alien rebels in capturing weapons depots that had been secretly undermined by human saboteurs. The most dramatic strike happened on Zeta Reticuli, where Lieutenant Commander Lee Jae-won had spent 12 years posing as a cargo ship mechanic. When Operation Liberation began, he revealed that every fuel depot on the planet contained hidden explosives placed during routine maintenance visits. "This is for every world you destroyed," he whispered as he triggered the charges. The explosion lit up Zeta Reticuli's night sky like a second sun, destroying the Empire's largest fuel processing center and crippling their ability to supply fleets in 3 different sectors. Back on Caltha Prime's industrial moon, Captain Minseo's team fought their way toward the main communication array. They needed to send a very specific message that would change everything. "Resistance is growing stronger," reported Sergeant Ko Yunji as she took down 2 Caltherian guards with her plasma rifle. "The Andromedan slaves in Sector 7 have broken out of their holding cells. They're fighting alongside the modified robots." Minseo smiled grimly. This was exactly what humanity had planned for. 20 years of careful preparation, not just military strikes, but something far more dangerous to the Empire: hope. The human operatives hadn't just hidden weapons and sabotaged equipment. They'd done something much more subversive. They'd talked to the enslaved populations, shared stories of Earth's defiance, and taught them that resistance was possible. "Cover me," Minseo ordered as she sprinted toward the communication tower. Energy bolts sizzled past her head as Caltherian reinforcements arrived, but her team's suppressing fire kept the aliens pinned down. She reached the communication array and plugged in a quantum transmitter that would broadcast on every frequency the Empire used. Her fingers flew over the controls, uploading a message that had been prepared on Earth months earlier. Suddenly, Admiral Lee's voice echoed across 32 Imperial worlds simultaneously, carried by the Empire's own communication networks that had been secretly compromised by human hackers. "To all enslaved worlds, to every being suffering under Imperial rule, hear me now. Freedom is not a gift that others can give or take away. It is a right that exists in the hearts of all thinking beings. Today, humanity stands with you. Today, we take back what was always ours." The message included detailed instructions for building weapons from common materials, tactical advice for fighting Caltherian forces, and most importantly, proof that the Empire could be defeated. Video footage from Earth's victory over the demonstration fleet played on screens across the galaxy. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, Centauri refugees who had lived as slaves for 30 years suddenly stood up and faced their guards with new determination. On the factory planet of Wolf 359, robotic workers reprogrammed by human infiltrators turned against their Caltherian overseers. The rebellion spread like wildfire across Imperial space. What had started as coordinated human strikes became something much larger, a galaxy-wide uprising of every species that had ever been conquered by the Caltherians. Captain Minseo watched from the communication tower as explosions bloomed across the industrial complex below. Modified mining robots fought alongside freed slaves, while Caltherian forces retreated in confusion. "Command, this is Viper Team," she reported. "Primary objectives complete. The facility is in rebel hands and the local population has joined the fight." Admiral Lee's voice came back filled with fierce satisfaction. "Excellent work, Minseo. Reports are coming in from all 32 target worlds. Operation Liberation is succeeding beyond our projections." As Minseo and her team prepared to extract from Caltha Prime, she looked up at the stars and thought about what they'd accomplished. Humanity hadn't just struck back at the Empire, they'd ignited something that couldn't be stopped. The Caltherian Empire had ruled through fear for 3 centuries, but fear only works when people believe they have no choice. Today, humans had shown the galaxy that there was always another option. The rebellion had begun, and it would spread to every corner of Imperial space until freedom burned as bright as the stars themselves. General Carvex stood on the bridge, that of his flagship Eternal Dominion, watching through the massive viewport as the last loyal fleets of the Caltherian Empire gathered around their homeworld. 300 warships formed defensive rings around Caltheria, their hulls scarred from battles across dozens of rebelling worlds. "Status report," Carvex demanded, his scaled hands gripping the command rail until his claws left marks in the metal. Admiral Vorthak, his most trusted commander, approached with visible reluctance. "Sir, we've lost contact with 41 worlds in the past week. Rigel 7 has declared independence. The Vega colonies are in open revolt. Even our mining stations in the Outer Rim have stopped responding." Carvex's orange eyes burned with fury and disbelief. In 3 centuries of Imperial rule, nothing like this had ever happened. A single species from one primitive world had somehow ignited a galaxy-wide rebellion that was tearing his empire apart. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked. 312 combat vessels, sir, but Vorthak hesitated. "Many crews are reporting discipline problems. Some of our own soldiers are questioning orders. 20 light-years away, Colonel." Taimin Yun stood in the command center of the human flagship, Liberation, surrounded by holographic displays showing the approaching Allied fleet. What he saw would have been impossible just months earlier. Ships from 6 different species, flying together in formation, united by their shared desire for freedom. The Centauri contributed their sleek cruisers with advanced shield technology. Andromedan vessels bristled with the heavy weapons they'd secretly developed during decades of slavery. Even the peaceful Rigelians had armed their cargo ships with improvised missile launchers built from mining equipment. "Colonel," reported Captain Park Hyun-woo from the communications station, "we're receiving final confirmations from all fleet elements. 218 ships ready for battle." Taimin nodded, studying the tactical display that showed Caltheria's defenses. The Empire's capital world was protected by orbital defense platforms, minefields, and energy barriers that had never been tested in real combat. Getting through would cost many lives. "Sir," called Lieutenant Nam Soo-jin from her sensor station, "Admiral Lee is requesting fleet-wide communication." The main screen activated, showing Admiral So-min Lee broadcasting from Earth's command center. Her grey hair was pulled back severely, but her eyes burned with determination that had inspired a galaxy. "All ships, this is Admiral Lee. In a few hours we will face the Empire's last stand at their capital world. Some of you were slaves yesterday. Others lived in fear of Imperial conquest. Today, you are free beings fighting for the right of every world to choose its own destiny." Throughout the Allied fleet, crews from dozens of different species listened to her words. On the Centauri cruiser, New Dawn, Captain Zethara translated for her mixed crew of humans and aliens. On the Andromedan battleship, Vengeance, former slaves who had never dreamed of freedom now prepared to fight for it. "We don't fight for conquest," Admiral Lee continued. "We fight so that no world will ever again be forced to kneel, so that no parent will watch their children taken as slaves, so that freedom will burn brighter than any star. The Allied fleet began its final approach to Caltheria. Colonel Tamin watched as the Empire's defensive systems came online. Massive energy cannons emerged from hidden positions on Caltheria's moons. Automated defense platforms powered up weapons that could crack asteroids in half. All ships begin attack pattern Alpha, Tamin ordered. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every species that dreams of freedom. The battle began when Caltherian orbital platforms opened fire with beams of concentrated energy that lit up space like lightning. The Peepus Allied fleet scattered into attack formations they'd practiced during the journey, each species contributing their unique strengths to the assault. Human ships used stealth technology and precise strikes to disable key defense systems. Centauri vessels employed their superior speed to dart between energy beams and deliver surgical attacks on Imperial command centers. The heavy Andromedan battleships absorbed punishment that would destroy smaller craft while returning devastating fire. General Carvex watched in growing horror as his supposedly impregnable defenses began to fail. The humans had somehow learned to coordinate different alien technologies and fighting styles into a unified battle plan that exploited every weakness in Imperial strategy. "Sir, the outer defense ring is collapsing," reported his tactical officer. "Human stealth ships are inside our perimeter, targeting command nodes." The battle raged for 18 brutal hours. Ships from both sides died in brilliant explosions that lit up Caltheria's night sky. The Empire's automated defense systems, designed to repel any single species attack, couldn't adapt to the diverse tactics of the Allied fleet. Colonel Tamin's flagship Liberation took heavy damage when it led a direct assault on Caltheria's main orbital station. Energy beams tore through the ship's hull, but human engineering teams kept the vessel fighting even as fires raged through multiple decks. "Engineering to bridge," called Chief Petty Officer Kim Min-ho over the intercom. "We've got hull breaches on 3 levels, but the main drive is still operational. Give us 10 more minutes and we can restore full power." The turning point came when Captain Song Ji-hee led a squadron of modified mining ships in a kamikaze run against Caltheria's main defense grid. Her vessels, originally built to crack asteroids, rammed through energy barriers that had protected the Imperial capital for centuries. "For every world that burned," she transmitted as her ship collided with the central defense platform. "For every species you enslaved, this is justice." The explosion could be seen from Caltheria's surface as the planet's main defensive shield collapsed. Allied ships poured through the gap, targeting the massive dome that housed the Imperial government center. General Carvex realized his empire was ending when human fighters strafed the streets of his capital city. Not to kill civilians, but to destroy the monuments and symbols of Imperial power that had oppressed the galaxy for 3 centuries. "Sir," Admiral Vorthak said quietly, "we're receiving surrender requests from our remaining ships. The crews, they've seen what freedom looks like. They want it too." As Caltheria's Great Dome cracked under Allied bombardment, releasing the artificial atmosphere that had kept Imperial leaders comfortable while their subjects suffered, the age of tyranny finally ended. The Caltherian Empire, which had seemed unstoppable for 300 years, collapsed not from superior firepower but from something more powerful: the idea that every being in the galaxy deserved to be free. Admiral So-Min Lee walked through the corridors of Haven Station, a massive space facility built from the wreckage of former Imperial ships. 6 months had passed since the fall of Caltheria, and the galaxy was still learning what freedom meant. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see vessels from 83 different worlds docked at the station's arms, their crews, working together to build something the galaxy had never seen before. The Free World's assembly hall buzzed with the sounds of dozens of different languages as representatives from across the galaxy took their seats. Centauri diplomats with their silver skin sat beside former Caltherian soldiers who had joined the rebellion. Andromedan engineers discussed trade agreements with Rigelian farmers. The diversity was overwhelming, but somehow it worked. "Admiral," called Captain Jin-Ho Park as he approached her observation deck. He wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, a far cry from his battle gear during the war. "The assembly is ready for your address." So Min nodded, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. What she said today would shape how the galaxy moved forward. Earth could have easily claimed the Empire's former territory, taken tribute from grateful worlds, built their own version of imperial rule. Many human leaders had quietly suggested exactly that. Instead, humanity had chosen a different path. The assembly hall fell silent as Admiral Lee took the podium. Before her sat beings she had fought alongside and against. Former Imperial Governor Thekvon, a massive reptilian creature, had surrendered his fleet during the Battle of New Rigel and now served as a mediator between former Imperial worlds. Captain Zaralin of the Centauri fleet had become one of Earth's closest allies after humans helped liberate her homeworld. "Friends," Admiral Lee began, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall through universal translators. "6 months ago, we stood together against tyranny. Today, we stand together to build something better." She activated a holographic display showing a map of the galaxy. Green dots marked the worlds that had declared independence. Yellow dots showed systems still transitioning from imperial rule. A few red dots marked regions where fighting continued, as old imperial loyalists refused to surrender. "Earth could have claimed dominion over the former imperial worlds," she continued. "Our fleets were victorious. Our technology proved superior. By the old rules of conquest, we could have simply replaced one empire with another." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Some species still expected this. It was how power had always worked in their experience. "But freedom cannot be imposed," Admiral Lee said firmly. "It must be chosen. Today you will decide your own future. Not because Earth commands it, but because every thinking being deserves that right." Captain Park watched from the observation area as the voting began. Each world's representative approached the central podium to cast their decision. Join the Free Worlds Coalition, remain independent, or choose some other path entirely. The Centauri delegation voted first. Captain Zaralin stood with obvious emotion. "Centauri Prime chooses to join the coalition. Humans taught us that strength comes not from ruling others, but from standing together as equals." One by one, former imperial worlds made their choice. The Andromedan mining colonies voted to join after years of slavery had taught them the value of cooperation. The peaceful Rigelian farmers chose coalition membership to gain protection while maintaining their pacifist ways. Even some former Keltherian worlds surprised everyone by voting to join. Commander Vorthak, who had served under General Karvex during the Empire's final battle, stood before the assembly with quiet dignity. "My people ruled through fear for 3 centuries, he said, his scaled voice carrying shame and hope in equal measure. "We want to learn what it means to lead through service instead. Caltheria Prime requests membership in the coalition." The vote wasn't unanimous. 17 worlds chose complete independence, preferring to govern themselves without any external alliances. 3 systems decided to form their own smaller confederations. Admiral Lee smiled as she watched the results. This diversity was exactly what freedom looked like. "The coalition respects every choice," she announced as the voting concluded. Independent. Worlds will be offered the same trade agreements and mutual defense pacts as member systems. Freedom means the right to choose your own path. Over the following weeks, Captain Park worked with representatives from 71 worlds to establish the coalition's basic principles. Unlike the Empire's rigid hierarchy, the new government would be a loose federation where each world maintained sovereignty over its internal affairs. The real test came when the first crisis emerged. Pirates, mostly former Imperial soldiers who refused to accept the new order, began raiding shipping lanes between Vega and Rigel. Traditional Imperial response would have been overwhelming force and collective punishment of entire systems that harbored criminals. Instead, the coalition responded with surgical strikes led by mixed crews from multiple worlds. Human tactical expertise combined with Centauri speed and Andromedan firepower to eliminate the pirate threat while protecting innocent civilians. The message was clear. The new galaxy would defend itself, but it wouldn't become the monster it had defeated. Admiral Lee stood in her quarters aboard the command ship New Hope, recording her final official log entry as Supreme Commander of Liberation Forces. Tomorrow she would retire from military service and return to Earth to write her memoirs. Personal log, Admiral So-Min Lee. Final entry, she spoke to the recording device. Today marks the end of my military career and the beginning of a new chapter for our galaxy. We faced an empire that seemed unstoppable, that had crushed every resistance for 3 centuries. She paused, looking out at the stars where ships from dozens of worlds traveled freely for the first time in generations. The Caltherian Empire wanted Earth to submit. They offered us the choice between slavery and death. Instead, we chose a third option. We chose to fight. But more than that, we chose to inspire others to fight alongside us. The recording captured her final words as military commander. We proved that the spirit of freedom, once ignited, cannot be extinguished. Not by force, not by fear, not by the promise of easy surrender. When thinking beings stand together and refuse to kneel, no empire can stand against them. 6 months after the first Caltherian ship appeared in Earth's solar system, the galaxy had learned a simple truth. Humanity didn't just survive when threatened with extinction. They thrived, and they lifted everyone around them to heights they never thought possible. The age of empires was over. The age of freedom had begun. The Eye. End.